I can't believe summer is ending. It's almost fall. And one thing that I completely forgot about was that one of my New Year's resolutions was supposed to be making my home feel more cozy. I really wanted to rearrange our dining room and our living room. And recently I got a pair of these gorgeous, cozy chairs. They're these striped chairs that I've been seeing everywhere. They're going super viral on TikTok and Instagram. And I just had to get them. They were the perfect thing for my new living room. And I got them from Wayfair. So Wayfair has everything you need to cozify your own space this fall, from comfy recliners to warm bedding and seasonal autumn decor. My style, I would say, is a little bit coastal, a little bit traditional, a little bit boho, all rolled into one. I'm really trying to lean into more color and more cozy textiles, especially as the weather starts to cool down. The best part about these new chairs is not only are they comfortable and super cute, but they arrived fully assembled. Just had to take them out of the box, and they got to my house in 2-3 days, maybe tops. So it was super fast. It was a great shopping experience. And did I mention I got them both for under $700? I could not believe what an amazing deal it was. So you can shop at Wayfair and get anything you need, from bedding and bath basics to your work from home setups to a living room refresh like myself. There's something for every style, every home, and every budget. Plus, there's free and easy delivery, even on big stuff, big furniture. So there's no need to make multiple stops at all different stores. You can get everything you need from Wayfair. You can cozify your space with their curated collection of easy, affordable fall updates, from comfy recliners to cozy bedding and autumn decor. Find it all for way less at wayfair.com. That's Wayfair, Wayfair.com. Wayfair, every style, every home. Welcome back to No One Told Us. I'm your host, Rachael, and today I'm so excited to be speaking with Jessica and Nita, co-founders of Happy Healthy Eaters. This is an Instagram community dedicated to supporting parents in feeling relaxed and confident about feeding their child. Nita and Jessica are both registered dietitians with a combined 25 plus years of education and work with children. And they started Happy Healthy Eaters in 2020, right around the same time I started my account. So we've been connected for a really long time. After you had your second baby, right? And you wanted to just kind of support parents through this journey of feeding and feeling confident with feeding. So I'm so excited that you're here today. We're going to talk mostly about toddlers today. You guys have so many resources on your website and on your Instagram as well. But today, just thank you for being here. Thank you for coming to talk to us about feeding toddlers, because it's rough out here.
It is. It's equally magical and the wild, wild west. It's like TikTok, right? It's unhinged feeding toddlers.
It really is. I have a toddler and she's my third one. So you would think that I'd have the feeding thing down. But it's so funny because it turns out every kid has their own personality and their own feeding preferences and things like that. So she has really thrown me for a loop. So I'm really excited to get some tips. Before we kind of dive into that, I would love to just hear a little bit about your journey to starting your Instagram and your website and building out all of your courses. What made you really passionate about teaching parents in this way?
For sure. That's a fantastic question. I guess, it actually goes back for me to my childhood, because I was that child that was difficult to eat. I had very strong preferences, and I was strong-willed, and my parents were equally strong-willed in their preferences for what I wanted to eat. So that was definitely a big battle, and is actually something that led me to become a dietitian myself, just wanting to heal from some of that and figure out, if I have kids, what do I want to do going forward that is going to support their eating instead of be a battle. And quite honestly, it is such an honor to share everything that we've learned professionally with parents. Again, personally, my husband has said recently, he's said, I'm so thankful that you are who you are and you're a dietitian, because our family meals, the table is a place of joy and fun. And he just watches some of his friends and what they go through, and he's like, I'm glad we don't do that. So.
Yeah. And for me, my entry into kind of nutrition and dietetics and wanting to kind of connect with parents sort of came out of like I think my own needs. So when it was time to start my first baby on solids, I went to just like a general public health event, and it was great information. A lot of it was on like how to start purees and the foods to offer, but it wasn't relatable for me because I'm like, well, I'm going to go home. I'm Indian. What am I going to feed my Indian baby? And how do I give them roti or like the different meals that we enjoy? So I just set out to kind of do my own thing, and then kind of felt that there was a bit of a gap in our community and started to do a bit of the group coaching and teaching. And then eventually Jess and I connected and decided, you know what, why don't we create an online course where we can, talk to parents about how to feed their children and see what happens. And so just bit by bit and year by year, we've grown, and it's really exciting to see where we're at now.
Yeah, that's so awesome. And you guys have some great recipes, and you just have so many amazing resources for parents. So let's kind of dive into talking about toddlers first. Okay, so my daughter is 18 months right now. By the time this airs, she'll be maybe 19 or 20 months. So definitely, that toddler stage has fully kicked in, where she's very, like you said, just strong-willed. But it's funny because my older kids were such good eaters as babies. Like, they've definitely kind of evolved to have their own, I wouldn't say pickiness, but they have preferences now that they're older, right? Which I think is normal. But as babies, they ate everything, and they ate so much. Like, they would have helping after helping at dinner, and eating with them was always just so easy. And I thought, oh, I'm like a great parent at this. Like, I do baby-led weaning, and I have it all figured out. And I've done everything exactly the same with my third. And she just is like a little bird. Like, she barely eats. She's not super picky. Like, she will try a lot of things, but she's just not taking in a lot of food. And she hates sitting. Like, having her sit in the high chair is nearly impossible. She just wants to be like on my lap or standing up or walking around. And I know that's not the safest. So I would love to hear what you guys have to say about, keeping toddlers at the table, keeping them interested. And then maybe later we can talk about how to know, how much food is actually supposed to be getting into their bodies before we start to panic, right?
Yeah, no, totally. A lot of what you're saying is really relatable. And like, good on you for leaning into the trust piece there with your little one, because each child is so unique, and some children are really preoccupied by food and enjoy food, and others, like, they just, it's just like another part of their day, and that's okay too. But I know that as parents, sometimes it can feel a little bit disheartening, but I always remind parents, like, how much or how little your kiddo eats is not a barometer of like the type of cook you are or the type of parent you are, but to the point of helping parents sort of keep their toddlers at the table. One thing that I find can be really helpful, especially for our movers, is making sure that before meal times that they're getting in a bit of a movement break. So like, parents can set up a little obstacle course in their house, or make sure that you have a bit of outdoor playtime where they can kind of engage in movement. So that way they kind of get the wiggles out when it is mealtime and can maybe come to the table. Another strategy that can be helpful too for parents, and I think you've got a learning tower at home, is actually, if your toddler can stand up, let them stand on their learning table and bring that right up to the dining table. I think that, yes, high chairs and boosters, they're wonderful, but if you feel comfortable with your baby having that sort of footing and that opportunity to kind of like leave and come back, that might also help. Although, I don't think we see it a lot on social media, but that's also a great place to kind of meet your kiddo where they're at.
Yeah, Rachel, I think it's great that you identified a bit with your little one that they are a mover. And I think that's one thing that is a really good starting point. We have a resource called Toddler at the Table, How to Keep Your Toddler Engaged at Meal Times. And the first thing that we go over is just asking, why is this happening? Because each kid is really unique, and we're gonna need to apply a different solution depending on what the reason is that they keep running away. So another one is that at supper time, oftentimes this is the one meal of the day where toddlers aren't actually very hungry. As parents, we might have this expectation that they should be eating X amount of food at each meal, whereas toddlers often have a meal, perhaps at breakfast, where they're front loading, they're having a big amount, and then at lunch, and then at supper time, they're more tired, they're tapered off, they aren't as hungry. But then we have this mismatched expectation as parents for what they should be eating. And if they're feeling that pressure, but they're not hungry, then they might be just trying to get out of there.
That's a really good point. And I'm also still breastfeeding. So sometimes I wonder too if that's part of it and if I should, maybe not nurse her for very long right before we're about to eat dinner or things like that, because, she might just not be that hungry. But you're right. It is this expectation that she's going to eat a big dinner, just like the rest of us. But I think that's really good advice.
Yeah, and I know for me too, I look forward to dinner because it's usually my favorite recipes, right? And breakfast is a gong show, it's a rush. And then, lunch, I'm not with them. My kids are in care. So then I really look forward to dinner and I have these grand expectations. But just like Jess said, it's sometimes we just have to check our expectations. And all the more reason then for you and your support people and partner to enjoy the food that you want to enjoy at supper time.
Yeah, that's so true.
At dinner time, I also really look forward to it because now, I mentioned I was a very selective eater as a kid, but I've become very adventurous. And dinner time is often when we branch out, we try different recipes, and our breakfasts and lunches are often more routine. And so for our toddlers who are just learning to eat a variety of foods, if they come to the dinner table and it's very different every day, that might be overwhelming for them, and it's not their comfort food that they're maybe going to want to load up more on.
Yeah, that's actually so true. So how do we know then when they're being picky, right? Or when they appear to be picky or selective? How do we know when we should provide? You see a lot on social media, right? About they need to have their safe foods and stuff like that. But then how easy is it to go too far in that other direction where you're only ever giving them mac and cheese and nuggets because those are the only things that they'll eat? What can you tell us about that? How do we find a healthy balance?
Yeah, totally. I mean, I think to the point of the safe food, I think if parents are identifying a bit of, stress at meal times, or they do think that their child is sort of losing certain foods or food groups, it is helpful to kind of think of a list of, okay, what are their typically accepted foods? And I usually encourage parents to try to include 1 to 2 of those along with it. So let's say tonight you want to have steak with chimichurri, but on the side you can try to think about, okay, well, what generally or typically do the kids accept that you can add in there so that they can be successful at meal times. And having those typically accepted foods helps children feel, we call it competent. I can do this. I can come, I don't know how I feel about the steak, but I can do this French fry thing, or I think I can have the fruit salad. And then for the parents, it's really leaning into trusting that, your child is going to figure this out on their own time from what you've provided them with.
And I think just to expand on that, the safe food, or what we call a typically accepted food, is that it doesn't need to be a slam dunk favorite of your child. Because if I think about myself, I absolutely love chocolate. That is something that I am going to eat probably regardless. Actually, literally half an hour before this, Nita said, do you want some chocolate? And I wasn't hungry at all, but I said yes.
Of course.
And so I'm not turning down chocolate, right? And so I think oftentimes parents are offering the safe food as a slam dunk favorite, whereas we want to, sometimes we can offer those favorite foods, of course, but it doesn't have to be every meal, but more something that they typically accept at least 50% of the time. For example, for me, I enjoy rice, but if I'm not hungry, I'm probably going to say no thank you if someone offers me rice. So as parents, if we're offering those foods alongside new ones, we can relax knowing that if our child is genuinely hungry, they will eat that food. And if they don't, then we can know that their appetite isn't there for that meal.
Okay, that's really good advice. I think that's helpful to just keep in the back of our minds too. And Nita, you mentioned the idea of like trusting our kids, and I think that can be so hard for us. So when we get back from this break, I want to talk a little bit more about trust and intuitive eating. We'll be right back. I can't believe summer is ending. It's almost fall. And one thing that I completely forgot about was that one of my New Year's resolutions was supposed to be making my home feel more cozy. I really wanted to like rearrange our dining room and our living room. And recently I got a pair of these gorgeous, cozy chairs. They're these striped chairs that I've been seeing everywhere. They're going super viral on TikTok and Instagram. And I just had to get them. They were the perfect thing for my new living room. And I got them from Wayfair. So Wayfair has everything you need to cozify your own space this fall, from comfy recliners to warm bedding and seasonal autumn decor. My style, I would say, is a little bit coastal, a little bit traditional, a little bit boho, all rolled into one. I'm really trying to lean into more color and more cozy textiles, especially as the weather starts to cool down. The best part about these new chairs is not only are they comfortable and super cute, but they arrived fully assembled. Just had to take them out of the box, and they got to my house in like 2-3 days, maybe tops. So it was super fast. It was a great shopping experience. And did I mention I got them both for like under $700? I could not believe what an amazing deal it was. So you can shop at Wayfair and get anything you need, from bedding and bath basics to your work from home setups to a living room refresh like myself. There's something for every style, every home, and every budget. Plus, there's free and easy delivery, even on big stuff, big furniture. So there's no need to make multiple stops at all different stores. You can get everything you need from Wayfair. You can cozify your space with their curated collection of easy, affordable fall updates, from comfy recliners to cozy bedding and autumn decor. Find it all for way less at wayfair.com. That's Wayfair, WAYFAIR.com. Wayfair, every style, every home.
Breaking up is never easy. But saying goodbye to your old clunky work tools? Well, that's easy. Just repeat after me. It's not me, it's definitely you. You rigid, unfriendly software. It's time to freshen things up with Monday.com, the first work platform you'll love to use. With stunning dashboards, customizable templates, and built-in AI that actually works, switching to a new work platform has never felt this good. So move on to Monday.com.
Okay, we're back, and before the break, we had kind of touched on this, and I would love for you to expand on this idea of trusting our kids. And for me, this has been really hard with my third. As I was mentioning, she's not quite as voracious of an eater as my older two kids, and I've really had to just kind of lean into that idea of trusting her to eat when she's hungry and stop when she's not hungry. And it can be really anxiety provoking as a parent to feel like your kid isn't getting enough food, or that they're not getting enough nutritious food. So what can you tell us about that? How do we know when it's okay to just trust our kid? And how do we know when we might need some extra support because they're actually really not eating at all?
Totally. So the trust piece is really foundational. And I mean, let's even go back to like when you first brought your babies home and, you know, we establish a nursing or bottle feeding relationship with them. We're really leaning into trust, right? Like you don't really know how much they're consuming, and sort of, again, like just kind of doing an assessment, right? But the trust piece is really, really important. And it is that trust that allows your child to then eventually branch out and try these different foods. So it's no different when we start solids, and then when we have a toddler, that trust piece does need to sort of be there to help them. But it is really tricky. And I know even for me, leaning into that trust, it almost like I have to get past like a certain level of discomfort as a parent. But if I'm doing my job, which is to provide, you know, balanced meals, have, you know, a fairly flexible dining schedule, and deciding where we're gonna eat, then really it is my children's job to kind of decide, you know, whether they're gonna eat or if they're going to eat it all. And I like to kind of even like think of like a container analogy where like I'm the outside of that container, those boundaries, right? And that lid is closed. And so my kids can do what they want to do within that container. And so that can be really, really helpful for parents too. And often I think on social media or maybe even more old school practices, they've really undermined parents' trust and trusting our child where, it was like, finish your plate, or like you can't eat this XYZ food until you eat ABC food, or like just try one bite. And really like it does undermine that trust piece. And we talk a lot about sovereignty and agency over our body, but it's really no different when it comes to feeding, right? I think, again, like our job is to sort of offer a variety of foods and then give our children the space that they need and the skills and the environment to then one day be ready to try those foods.
So we talk about this feeding framework that Nita outlined in our e-course, Feeding Toddlers Confidently, so that parents have that checklist. Okay, these are the things that I can do to provide a good feeding relationship with my toddler. And it's really helpful to know, okay, what is my role? And then once you fulfill your role, it's easier to trust that reciprocal relationship with your child, that then they have this role to play as well.
Yeah, I love that. And I've heard it referred to as like the division of responsibility, yes. I think, right? So I think that can be really helpful. And for me, I learned that a few years ago, and it was a term we even used in like education back when I was teaching too. And that's been a helpful framework for sure. Like I know that I'm providing things that she eats, things that she likes. I'm providing stuff that's nutritious, and whether or not she eats it is kind of up to her. And like, that's the best I can do. And that can be really, really hard. But I think just keeping in mind that like you're doing your part is really important. But then what happens when a child is like really aversive to eating at all, or they're like extremely selective, or they're doing things like gagging at certain smells or textures? Like, how does a parent know when, okay, this is not just a toddler being picky or a toddler being a mover, or, they're just not super interested in food? How do you know when there's that line of like, okay, maybe we need some extra help with this?
That's a great question, because there's a lot of run-of-the-mill picky eating, shall we say, and then there's a point where this is actually interfering with the child's growth and development, or maybe severely challenging child to feed. And so there are definitely red flags to watch out for. So if a child is dropping on their growth curve a lot, then maybe there is something medically going on, or maybe anatomically, that they do need some therapy for. And there's a few other criteria. For example, if they're eating less than 15 to 20 different foods, then that is definitely something where you'd want to get more of a individualized support to proceed.
Yeah, and I'm also a big believer that if parents are stressed at the dinner table, like go get help. I mean, I think whether it's a registered dietitian, an occupational therapist, or an SLP, but someone in that feeding space, because we can kind of then rule out differential diagnoses or look at the environment. Maybe it's just a matter of a footstool. Like maybe that's like the only thing that your kiddo needs, but then at least you've got someone who's kind of coming in, doing an assessment and providing you with that support, rather than like you just sitting there stressing and just thinking about the food. Like I think so often we blame the food. But it could actually just be something else that is taking place.
Yeah. And so do you find that a lot of people get referred to support people like that through their pediatrician, or is it best to go right to like a speech language pathologist or a feeding specialist?
Yeah, I mean, I think it'll vary depending on where people live and what you have access to. I know certainly here in Canada where we live, it can be a bit tricky to access public health care. So
Yeah, same
if
here.
you want to like wait on a list, you're more than welcome to. But there's lots of private practice practitioners now in the feeding space. So just looking online or actually even Instagram is like a really great place to kind of you know, vet out like who you might want to work with. But there are, people who really can support you and make this like journey of eating a bit more joyful. And one of the we talked about the division of responsibility, which is founded by Ellen Satter. But one of like my favorite quotes of hers is, when joy at mealtimes is no longer there, often nutrition will suffer, right? And so I think if you can work with someone to ensure that that joy is still there, then like the nutrition will often sort of take care of itself. It'll need some support, but it's a lot better than if we're all just sitting together around the dinner table in misery and anxious. Like parents are often highly anxious in these situations. So if we can kind of settle that down a little bit, it'll make for more enjoyable and positive mealtime experiences.
For sure. And I would love to talk more about your ideas for how we can do that as parents. So we'll be right back and we'll talk a little bit more. People always ask me, is Thrive Market really worth it? Is it really that great? Do you really love it? And I don't know what else to tell you guys. I love Thrive Market so much. I've been a loyal customer for years. We have our delivery at least once a month because we have a bunch of our everyday items on Subscribe. And then we're kind of always checking in for sales and deals to get other stuff as well, like pantry items and snacks and supplements, and even our like pantry stuff and toiletries. We get our toothpaste from there. I mean, literally everything. It makes our life so much easier. It simplifies that before school rush. We now have 3 kids in school, which is absolutely wild, but that means we go through a lot of snacks. And Thrive Market isn't just convenient, but it is the absolute best place to shop if you are looking for high quality and no junk food, but without the massive price tag. So if you want to try Thrive Market, go to thrivemarket.com/HeySleepyBaby to get 30% off your first order and a free $60 gift. That's thrivemarket.com/HeySleepyBaby.
Taking on a DIY job around the house is the ultimate summer project. But if your DIY home security system is a beware of dog sign, when your real pet is Princess the cat, that's safe-ish. To be actually safe, help protect your home with a DIY system from ADT. It's easy to install and gives you virtual assistance from ADT's technical support team. Best of all, you can tell everyone in the neighborhood you set it up yourself. Don't settle for safe-ish this summer. DIY with ADT instead. Visit ADT.com to learn more.
So right before the break, we were talking about, making mealtime as joyful as we can so that our little ones can get that nutrition that they need. What is the value? I know you guys talk a lot about family meals and, that maybe it's old school now. I don't know. That's kind of depressing, but like that old school idea of like gathering together around the family dinner table every night. So what are your opinions on that? Do you think it's realistic for modern parents to do that every night? And what are some things that we should think about when we're starting to have this family meal as a part of our family routines and rituals with our kids?
Well, we're realistic. We are parents right there too. So to say every single meal needs to be all together at the table is not necessary. We just think, where are you at now, and how can you maybe add a little bit more or get creative? It doesn't necessarily have to be dinner time. If you have a lot of extracurriculars, maybe it's breakfast time that you make the habit. But 100% we are big fans of family meals, so that is certain. And there are numerous benefits to it long term, but just right away, when our kids are little, one of the main benefits is just that modeling piece. Kids learn by watching those around them who are proficient at skills. So even when we talk about babies who are starting solids and parents will come to us, okay, you know, my child doesn't seem to be figuring out this eating thing. They're gagging a lot, they're spitting, they don't know how to put food in their mouth. And one of the first questions we ask is, are you feeding your child separately or are they joining you at the table? And so often we say, oh, yeah, no, we don't have them at the table. We say, bring them with you so that they can literally watch you eat and learn from you. And so that continues on in toddlerhood and beyond.
From a practical standpoint, I think it's helpful too, especially if you have two folks in the household that are working, like sit down with your calendar, figure out when soccer is, when swimming is. And you know what, like if right now we're not having any family meals, like can we get to one? And then can we get to two and then three? And I want to also acknowledge that there's so many systemic barriers to having that family meal time. I mean, like, I think we forget too, like fast food was a part of the feminist like revolution, right? And so with women now working and then shift work and parents doing 12-hour shifts and food prices, right? Like parents have to kind of, you know, it's just a tough environment to make it work. So for the parents that are sitting there feeling guilty that they're not doing the whole family meal thing, like you need to give yourself a break. We're all doing the best that we can. And we get to kind of use this evidence and make informed decisions. But at the end of the day, we're all in it together, and just doing the best that you can would be like our key takeaway.
Yeah. And it sounds like it's flexible, right? Like you don't need to be cooking a 5-course meal and sitting down with your kids every single night. Like it does not have to be that complicated or fancy. It's just sitting down at the table and sharing some food whenever you can, right?
Yeah, like it could be peanut butter and honey sandwiches, but eating together, you are passing on the values that you have. It's a chance to connect with each other and talk. And yeah, it's not about the food, basically.
Right.
It's not about the food.
Yeah. Sometimes parents will ask me a lot, like how our nightly routine goes, because our kids go to bed pretty early. And so for a lot of parents, it feels impossible to have this family meal before your kids go to bed, because like you're getting off work at 5 and picking up from daycare at 5:30 and your kids go to bed at 7. Like when do you fit it in? And my husband and I used to, when we had like different schedules and stuff, we would actually just have like a little bit of a snack while our baby was sitting and having his meal. And we didn't want to eat at 5 o'clock. So we would sit with him and have a snack and like talk and stuff. And then we'd put him to bed and we would eat our dinner after he was in bed. So I feel like there are creative ways to kind of make it work and to just make sure that you're having that time as much as you can. Again, if it's not every night, that's okay. I love how you guys talk a lot about different cultures and different types of meals based on your culture. How can families, Nita, you mentioned Indian food at the beginning. How can families serve culturally appropriate or really important foods to them, to their baby? How can we adapt meals that we're already making for our baby or for our toddler? What are some tips you have for that? Because I think a lot of parents also just feel like, I can't make 3 different meals, but like we want to eat this thing. And so it can be hard.
Yeah, I mean, one of my like suggestions for families is like list out like the top 10 things like that you really enjoy and want to have frequently. So for me, like that might include something like tandoori chicken and naan, and then maybe sit down and try to think of different strategies that need to be employed to kind of modify that recipe. So of course, for a baby, you want to be mindful of things like too much salt, or you want to watch out for choking risks, right? Or choking hazards. And so just modifying the recipes a little bit can be really supportive. On our blog post, we actually have a really great, or on our blog, we have a really great blog post, and it's like 5 or 6 different strategies to take any recipe and make it baby-led weaning friendly. So that's
cool.
a really great read that parents can kind of jump to. But
okay, we'll link that one in the show notes because that sounds really, really handy.
Yeah. And I think, again, like another really great tip is to schedule in those cultural meals that you want to be enjoying, because food is such a beautiful way to connect with our children and pass on that culture. And for me, I'm a first generation immigrant. And so it is a really special way for me to kind of continue to connect with my ancestry, but then also share that with my children. And quite frankly, like my kids will down any Indian food, but like you give them like rotisserie chicken, broccoli, and mashed potatoes, like they want nothing to really do with that. So it actually is, I feel really affirmed in the decisions that I made to feed my kids our cultural food early and often, even though it wasn't what I saw online. And in some ways, like I felt a little bit left out in those experiences with other parents, but I'm just so glad that I made those decisions. So it doesn't matter, what cultural background you have, but if those foods are really important to you, adapt them and offer them to your baby and toddler as they are aging.
I love that. What is something that you would tell parents about ingredients? Because I know that there's a lot of like fear mongering and misinformation out there. There's the word toxic being thrown around constantly. What would you say to parents about the sourcing and the quality of their child's food? How important is it to buy everything organic? And what's the deal with like packaged food? What is your kind of stance on that?
That's a big one.
Yeah,
I know.
Pause here because that is a very loaded question. So I think foundationally, one thing that's really important to remember that here in North America, in Canada, and the United States, our food supply is incredibly safe. There has been huge strides in public health and regulations and everything to ensure that our food supply is safe. So regardless of whether organic is important to you from a philosophical standpoint, that aside from that, whether it's conventionally grown or organic, it is safe, and there's nothing to worry about from that point of view.
And even from a nutrition perspective, there's not a significant difference. So I think that we're often, I think parents make this assumption that organic is better or healthier. It really isn't, right? When we're looking at that, it isn't. It's just a different way of growing food. And to Jessica's point, I mean, we're in the golden years of food production right now when you think about historically where we've previously been. So whether you want to buy organically grown food or conventionally grown food, it's 100% a personal choice. But in terms of what the evidence and the science is saying is, conventionally grown foods are just as nutritious and often grown with the environment in mind, using sustainable practices. So, shout out to our farmers. I don't know if any of your audience is from the ag sector, but I mean, these are the folks that really are growing our food. And so, I know for me, I just have a lot of gratitude in this food supply. And so I hope that helps to answer a few questions. And I know when you're feeding a baby or toddlers, it's almost like there's like this extra pressure. Like I'll buy them organic, but I won't for me. But I want to kind of reiterate that, without getting into like maximum residue limits, like the foods that you're offering your baby are safe. And there's really like a very little that parents need to worry about on that topic.
Okay, that's really helpful because I think, food prices today are so crazy. And so to hear that, it's okay to serve them conventionally grown fruit and vegetables and things like that is, I'm sure, going to be a huge weight off of some parents' shoulders because, it's really expensive and there's so much fear mongering going around about different foods. So
there's this one study or survey, I'm not sure if it was an official research study, but it showed that when people believe this messaging that conventionally grown produce was harmful and that they should only buy organic, for those who weren't able to afford organic, they just didn't eat fruits and vegetables.
Oh gosh.
Which is by far the opposite
Worse,
of
yeah.
what people to be doing. And something we just feel so sad that there's all this messaging out there for parents and so much fear, where it really doesn't have to be that way. We do not need to fear every single food out there.
Yeah. I mean, I know this is probably like a whole other topic too, but like the harm in these messages is like, I often think of the most vulnerable population, right? And so I think we all have our responsibility to kind of like think critically about food choices and the messages, because often, you know, the organic and non-GMO, it often comes from a very elitist point of view. And I think all of us can benefit from kind of checking our privilege from time to time.
100%. Yeah, I'm so glad you said that. Well, we are going to wrap up. This was such an amazing conversation, and you guys have so many more incredible resources over on your page and on your website. But before we go, I always love to ask something that you wish you knew before you became a parent.
So for me, it's pretty easy. Like I wish someone had told me about the cluster feeding.
Oh God. Yeah.
When they were born. Like I thought something was wrong with my baby. I'm like, you're trying to break me right now. Like, how could you possibly be hungry? But no, you're just like ramping up the supply, and this is intuitive, and I have to trust you. And
there you go.
lean into that responsive feeding. So that's mine. No one, like not a single one of my friends, I was like, why did you not tell me about this?
Oh my gosh, that's criminal. Well, I talk about it in my newborn course, so nobody can blame me for not telling them.
Okay, so I feel a little funny about this, but I actually did not have very many surprises in the early times, but I attribute that to the fact that I was working in public health, where like several times a week, I was part of these mommy or parent and me classes where essentially everyone told everything about these early years. So I heard it all.
Oh, that's amazing.
I was prepared, and so I'm very thankful for that. And at the same time, I also took a lactation consultant course. So
there you go.
Yeah. So
yeah. I love that. That's how it should be, right? Like I mean, we're so isolated these days. Like it should be just, you know, by the time we have a baby, we've seen other people in our village have babies over and over and over again. So we're just so much more prepared, but it's not like that for many of us these days. So I'm glad you had that experience. Thank you both so much for joining today. Where can people find your resources? I think particularly the Feeding Toddlers Confidently course is what people are going to be most interested in after listening to this. So where can they find that?
Yeah, you can visit us at happyhealthyeaters.com. We've got tons of free recipes and a blog that we maintain. And then if folks want to reach out, we literally check every DM. So you can also connect with us on Instagram. And again, we're at Happy Healthy Eaters. You can find us everywhere. I think we're on TikTok, Facebook, Pinterest.
Not X. We never did the X.
Oh no, I'm not going to be on X ever, but I do pretty much all the other ones, even though it drives me almost insane. And I'll link the things that we mentioned today in the show notes as well, so that it's really easy for people to just go find those links. Thank you both so much. Have a great rest of your day.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you for having us.
This episode is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. Do you ever think about switching insurance companies to see if you could save some cash? Progressive makes it easy to see if you could save when you bundle your home and auto policies. Try it at progressive.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and affiliates. Potential savings will vary. Not available in all states.